I'm 24 and I've been dating my boyfriend for 5 years now. We grew up together as neighbors and were friends for a couple years before dating. I love him so much and I want to marry him. His family is great and I adore them all, and he's great with my family too. He also formed a great relationship with my younger sister who's 21. The issue is that I think their bond is too close. My boyfriend and I live together, but he spends a lot of time with her. Albeit I am sort of busy. I'm currently in grad school for engineering, so I have to go to my classes. My boyfriend works full time. My sister is currently taking a gap year, but that 1 year has extended from when she was 18. She comes over when I'm in seminars and classes. They have tons of inside jokes and share the same sense of humor and taste in movies. It makes me feel left out, but when I try to include myself, they both stop being so enthusiastic and act like it's super awkward to have me there. My sister and I were close growing up, but started drifting when I went to uni. When my boyfriend isn't there and I talk to her, she becomes kind of cold and sometimes says rude things. Once she told me to my face that I'm not good enough for him and that he deserves better, which made me cry for a couple days. He also gets her gifts for the most random achievements, like he got her a present for making it through the week, even though she doesn't even do anything. She currently isn't working or trying to pursue a hobby or interest. She's just taking it easy, in her own words. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad my boyfriend and sister are friends, but my major problem is that my boyfriend tells her everything. Literally everything. He tells her things that he doesn't tell me and talks to her about me and our relationship. She knows all of our issues and good parts to a level of detail that I wouldn't even tell my closest friends or parents. She even knows the grades I got on my midterms and finals and what I think about my manager. I work part-time to contribute to our apartment, but also get paid for my research, which goes towards our needs as well, which I feel is unnecessary for her to know since I didn't tell her myself. I asked him to step back a bit and stop telling her things about me and our relationship, but he was shocked and told me that I'm an asshole for even requesting it. Now I feel guilty, so am I the asshole? Part 2, my boyfriend tells my sister everything. I set up nanny cams in hidden spots in our bedroom and living room area in our apartment. Today happens to be my birthday and I just turned 25. D, my closest friend, wanted to take me on a day trip yesterday. My boyfriend agreed and said that we do something the next day on my actual birthday. I told him that I'd be out from 8 in the morning and I'd be home by 8 or 9 p.m. D took me out, but she noticed I was feeling a bit off. I was still thinking about something shady going on between my boyfriend and my sister. I ended up spilling everything while we were eating lunch. D was outraged on my behalf and agreed that something was off. She asked if I wanted to cut our day short and drop back home to see if anything was happening, and convinced me by saying that it's better to find out today than tomorrow. I realized we could have checked the nanny cams, but for some reason we forgot about them in the heat of the moment. Honestly, I'm kind of glad I didn't check because I would have started ugly crying in public. I'm guessing most of you know what happened. We drove back home around 4 p.m. I caught them literally in the act. Why were they doing it at 4 p.m.? I don't even know. I just kind of stood there with my arms folded and I hope I had a badass resting bitch face. Although maybe it was more like trying not to cry face. My boyfriend gave me a whole "it was an accident" spiel. I just ignored him and started packing my things. Thank God our lease was up for renewal within a month. He begged me and eventually yelled at me for packing up. The funny thing is, I bought most of the furniture and supplies. So, me being slightly petty, packed as much as I could. Dee helped me and we loaded everything up in her car. We left some stuff I couldn't fit, but I'll go back for that later. The whole time, my sister was sitting stoically wrapped up in a robe on my couch. We went back to Dee's house and I had a breakdown. Dee, the angel that she is, provided me with ice cream and fuzzy blankets. My boyfriend spammed me with calls and texts ranging from "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, it was only one time" to "it wasn't my fault, you should have been around more." We decided to check the recordings and lo and behold, it was definitely not just once. I'm really sad that my sister, who used to bake me cupcakes and do karaoke with me, could betray me like this. My boyfriend, well, he was my first, and in hindsight, he didn't really contribute much anyways. Currently, I've been staying with my friend and I've blocked both my ex-BF and my ex-sister. To be honest, it's a huge weight off my back and I know that this won't affect me forever. Story time about how I pretended to be deaf the entire quarantine. When quarantine started, I started an online course for a few subjects. To provide some background, these aren't my school classes or anything and I've never met these people before. There are maybe 10 other kids in the class and the teacher is actually pretty great. So the first 2 days go pretty well, but on the third day I mess up big time. We were in between a physics class that had already been going on for an hour and I'd completely gotten distracted halfway through. I have an incredibly low attention span and this was already too much for me. When the teacher called my name to answer his question, I had no idea what he'd been talking about, so I tried to Google it. However, I have shitty internet, so it took a really long time to load and the teacher was getting pissed as to why I wasn't responding and why I was typing. So, completely freaking out, I decided to text him on the Google Meet chat and make an excuse that my laptop's audio and microphone weren't working that day, and I'd been reading the subtitles, which took a long time to load, so I hadn't quite gotten to his question. In my immense panic, I phrased it somewhat vaguely and said, "I can't actually hear. I've been reading the subtitles and they take a long time to load." To which the instructor said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't aware that you're deaf." In my intense panic and anxiety, I just went along with it. Dumb as hell, I know. It actually worked out fine. I type out all the answers that were sent to me and even bought a hearing aid sometimes and wore it in class. Now I say sometimes because I don't actually have the focus and commitment to remember to put it on every class. When asked about it, I told people in the class that even with the hearing aid, I can't hear much, so I don't usually bother wearing it. They bought it. Everyone in class liked me a lot and they found me very endearing. There's a girl, Carla, who said I had the most beautiful smile she's ever seen. So this was actually going really well for me. But, like most of my antics, this backfired on me big time. When I made this godforsaken decision all that time ago, I was sure I'd get away with it. However, about a week ago, the instructor decided to meet in real life and the lockdown in my country had been lifted. I spent all night watching videos and figuring out how to behave. I decided to pretend to also be completely dumb so I wouldn't have to speak in sign. It seemed very hard and I didn't want to try. So anyway, we meet up and everything goes well. No one uncovers my secret or anything. I spend the entire in real life meet with Carla, who's completely freaking stunning in real life. She's smart, funny, and she's kind. We keep handing each other notes on tissue papers, and it's the cutest shit ever. I haven't been this attracted to anyone in my entire life. Toward the end of the meet, however, Carla hands me a tissue paper with one little heartbreaking sentence on it. Will you date me? That's when panic sets in. Part 2 of how I pretended to be deaf the entire quarantine. After pretending to be deaf in my class the entire quarantine and being asked out by a girl I fell for in the class, I panicked. I told her that I needed time to think and she was chill with it. So basically, I prepared really hard for the date. I googled what the appropriate flowers for apologizing for your lives are and got her white orchids. I then put on my best clothes and set out. She came to the date with a cute little notepad and 2 pencils for us to write notes in, which melted me instantly. But I was so anxious and nervous at first that I couldn't bring myself to tell her. However, as we sat there waiting for our order to arrive, I kind of snapped because of the guilt and scribbled down into the notebook, "Hey, there's not an easy way to break this, but I'm not actually deaf. Or dumb." To which she replied with, "I know you're not deaf, but you are pretty dumb," with a smiley face. At which point I said, "What the F?" out loud. She then laughed and explained that she thought I was so cute that she Googled me long ago and found my Instagram, which has highlighted stories from concerts where I'm screaming and vibing. So she only asked me out to figure out how long I'd keep it going. So she was actually playing me the whole time. I was feeling pretty bummed that she only wanted to date me for that, but nevertheless, I apologized profusely and explained everything. I told her that I totally understand if she wants to end the date now, but she didn't. We had a great time and aren't officially dating or anything, but we do have a second date planned. She also told me that while she understands why I did what I did and that anxiety, especially social anxiety, is so hard to deal with, but she also believes that I was a little offensive, especially with the hearing aid. She explained to me why that was so insensitive, and I'd like to apologize for anyone that I might have offended. It really wasn't my intention. Also, for our second date, we're planning to volunteer at a center for deaf kids so I can redeem myself. I'm also learning the basics of sign language for the visit next week.
Okay, so because everyone knows what the Scientology symbol is now, given what happened recently in the media, I saw a lot of people in the comment sections asking what Scientology is. So I figured we should talk about it. And FYI, this is no hate to them at all. If someone handed me this necklace, I think I would have thought it was Taylor Swift merch. The S kind of looks like a snake. So the word Scientology quite literally means knowing how to know. The Latin word scio meaning knowing, mixed with the Greek word logos meaning study. And the point of this religion is to develop a deep understanding for one's true spiritual nature, and understanding one's relationship to self, family, groups, mankind, all life forms, the material universe, and the spiritual universe, and the supreme being. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The religion was developed by an author named L. Ron Hubbard, and some of the original controversy surrounds him being a science fiction author. Writing over 600 pieces, he literally has the world record for the author with the most published works. In his own biography, he's presented as a war hero, adventurer, prodigy that turns into a messiah. But pretty much most of his biography was a total sham. So in L. Ron Hubbard's book, he talks about stuff as simple as his childhood whenever he was on a cattle ranch, whenever he didn't even actually own one, and to get into the US Navy, he wrote his own fake letter of recommendation. He was later removed from this post because his superiors found him incapable of command. For example, he fired at a Japanese submarine that no one else could see and he had no proof of. He also fired at an island that turned out to belong to Mexico, a US ally. So not exactly the war hero he was portraying himself as. He becomes a practicing hypnotist and develops other unconventional interests. And in 1950, he writes Dianetics, Modern Science of Mental Health. Note the volcano here, we'll get to that later. And this book focuses on a technique that's still used in Scientology today called auditing. An auditor is someone who is counseling you through a machine called an e-meter. It works similarly to a lie detector test. This helps the patient get through past traumas, and it starts the process of removing negative past memories in a process called clearing. And this science slowly moved on to be a religion. So what exactly do Scientologists believe? So they believe in something called a thetan, which is essentially an immortal soul that has been through multiple past lives and is trapped in our now human bodies. We are not confined to a single lifetime, and we are capable of anything even though we haven't realized it yet. So this is the point of the auditing. Not only to go through and clear all of your trauma from this lifetime, but all of your past lifetimes as well. Their godlike figure is referred to as the supreme being, but discovering this being is each own individual's unique journey. They also believe in the 8 dynamics, which I'll put here. And once you're clear, you can move on up the ladder to a more meaningful and powerful position. The goal is to hit operating thetan. Once you get to this level, you can control the world around you, and you can also leave your body at any time. To achieve OT, you have to get to level 3, which takes a lot of auditing, and you have to sign confidentiality agreements. And Hubbard warned people about this level, saying that it was dangerous and might cause illnesses. And some of the documents about this level were released to the public, which got very controversial. What was in these documents? Well, 75 million years ago, there was a dictator called Xenu who was an alien and ruled over the Galactic Confederacy. He brought billions of his people to Earth, stacked them around volcanoes, and killed them. Hence the volcano, which released their thetans into the environment. And these thetans, spirits, adhere to humans, which is ultimately what causes us spiritual harm. There's obviously a lot more to this, and this is just a Cliff Notes version. And when Ron Hubbard passed away, the church pretty much just said that he no longer needed his physical body anymore. Like, he's completed all of the levels. And you guys might be wondering, yes, this sounds a little interesting, but everyone has freedom of religion, so why is this one so bad? Well, let's start with how much it costs to be a part of this. To achieve these levels, you have to spend so much money. One of the cheapest levels for auditing is like $2,700, and that's assuming you end that session being free of those traumas. Most people spend around $500,000. And if you finish these and you're not an operating Thetan, that's on you, start over, pay again. I really hope they don't come for me after this series, but keep in mind that even Charles Manson thought that Scientology was too crazy for him. Well, after they had decided that they were a religion, they were exempt from taxes around the 60s. And this was many lawsuits later. And in 1986, a guy named David Miscavige took over the church. And this is where a lot of their violence and abuse claims come from. A lot of them are towards him, but nothing's been substantiated. And after him, a rise in celebrities joining Scientology came about. Tom Cruise, John Travolta would help recruit people. This church is making a ton of money and allegedly giving people low wages. In addition to this, it has broken families apart. Like, if someone in your family does not agree with you being a part of this, you are required to cut them off. The leader of the church even cutting off his own father. And the scariest part of this is that all of your auditing tapes are recorded. So you have a file of your deepest, darkest secrets on record. They can be either used to discredit you or blackmail you later. And they have been known to force confessions. Also, no one has seen David's wife since like 2007. If you want to hear the rest of this story, go to my Insta.